Big changes are coming to Tesco in 2026 that will affect how you shop. Behind the friendly aisles and familiar Clubcard deals, something much bigger is already being set in motion. Policies are quietly being rewritten, systems upgraded behind the scenes, decisions made long before customers are ever warned. I've spent weeks digging through announcements, internal plans, industry reports, and expert warnings. And what I uncovered paints a very different picture from the reassuring ads you see on TV. Some of these changes are being marketed as helpful, others are being framed as necessary, but taken together they could permanently change how millions of people shop for food. In this video, I'll be exposing 8 major changes coming to Tesco in 2026. Changes that could affect your wallet, your privacy, and even what ends up on your dinner table. And the number 1 change, it's the one Tesco doesn't want you questioning at all. Number 8, the free fruit comeback that isn't as innocent as it sounds. At first glance, this sounds like an unquestionable positive. As 2026 begins, Tesco is bringing back its free fruit initiative for children across hundreds of larger stores and selected click-and-collect locations. Bowls of apples placed near store entrances. A simple, friendly gesture aimed at families. To most shoppers, it feels like Tesco is doing something generous, even responsible, by encouraging healthier habits at no cost. Parents see it as a small win. Children grab an apple without asking. No money changes hands, no loyalty points required, no obvious catch. In a time when food prices are still high, gestures like this feel refreshing, and that's exactly why almost nobody stops to question it. But in retail, nothing is ever truly free. Supermarkets have long understood that giveaways are powerful psychological tools. Something as small as a free piece of fruit can subtly change how people move through a store. It slows customers down at the entrance, sets a positive emotional tone, and makes children associate the shop with rewards. All of this increases the time families spend inside, and the longer shoppers stay, the more they tend to buy. Timing matters too. This initiative isn't happening in isolation. It's arriving during a period where supermarkets are facing tighter margins, heavier competition, and increasing reliance on customer data and behavioral insights. Giving away something inexpensive like apples can generate far more value in return through increased footfall, stronger brand trust, and long-term habit formation. There's also a quieter, more strategic layer at work. Initiatives like this help position Tesco not just as a retailer, but as a partner in public health and family well-being. That image becomes extremely useful when other changes are introduced. Changes to pricing structures, store layouts, product ranges, or purchasing incentives. When a company is seen as doing good, customers are far less likely to scrutinize what's happening elsewhere. The real impact of this change isn't about fruit at all. It's about influence. Once shoppers accept small behavioral nudges without resistance, it becomes easier to introduce bigger ones later. What gets promoted, what gets quietly deprioritized, how customers move through the store, and which choices feel normal are all shaped gradually, not announced loudly. Parents may feel like Tesco is helping them make better decisions, while at the same time being guided more deliberately than ever before. And once those habits are formed, they're incredibly difficult to undo. If this seems harmless, that's the point. Because what's coming next, the changes to pricing in 2026, could have a much bigger impact on what you're really choosing at the checkout. Number 7. The new price cuts that quietly change what you buy. As 2026 unfolds, Tesco is rolling out another wave of major price cuts across thousands of products. On the surface, this looks like exactly what shoppers want. Lower prices, better value, relief after years of rising food costs. Tesco presents these cuts as proof that it's on the customer's side, helping families cope with everyday pressures. Most shoppers won't question it. Why would they? Cheaper food feels like a win. Yellow labels, Aldi price match signs, and Clubcard discounts all create the impression that Tesco is fighting to keep prices down for everyone. But price cuts don't happen in a vacuum. Behind every reduced price is a decision about which products deserve to stay affordable and which ones don't. When supermarkets slash prices on certain items, they often recover the difference elsewhere through supplier pressure, reduced product variety, smaller pack sizes, or quieter price increases on less visible items. Over time, this reshapes what shoppers actually buy. Products that fit Tesco's pricing strategy get more shelf space, stronger promotion, and better placement. Others slowly disappear. Customers still feel like they're choosing freely, but the range itself has been narrowed. There's also a deeper shift happening. These price cuts increasingly rely on loyalty schemes to function. Clubcard prices aren't just discounts anymore. They're a way to steer purchasing behavior. The more Tesco relies on targeted pricing, the more it learns about what you buy, when you buy it, and how sensitive you are to price changes. That data allows prices to be adjusted with incredible precision, not just seasonally, but strategically. What feels like generosity can also be a test. Which products pull you in, which offers make you spend more overall, and how your habits can be influenced next time. For shoppers, the danger isn't paying less, it's losing awareness. When prices are constantly shifting, normal becomes harder to define. It gets easier to miss when certain items quietly rise in cost, shrink in size, or are replaced with cheaper alternatives. Over time, choice feels intact, but it's increasingly curated. In 2026, Tesco's price cuts won't just change what you pay. They'll change what's available, what's promoted, and what feels like the obvious option in your basket. And if you think price manipulation is subtle, wait until you hear what's changing about how you pay inside Tesco stores. Number 6. A popular way to pay is being switched off. For several years, Tesco pushed customers toward a more tightly connected shopping experience. The goal was simple: keep everything in one place. Payment, rewards, and savings all tied together. One of the clearest examples of this was Clubcard Pay Plus, a payment option that linked Tesco bank accounts directly to Tesco shopping. For many customers, it felt modern, efficient, and effortless. You paid for your shopping, collected Clubcard points automatically, and even rounded up spare change into savings without thinking about it. Over time, this stopped feeling like an optional feature and started feeling like part of the routine. People built habits around it. They trusted it. Some even relied on it for budgeting and small-scale saving because it worked quietly in the background every time they shopped. Tesco encouraged this behavior, presenting it as smarter, simpler, and more rewarding than traditional payment methods. But in 2026, that system is being shut down. Tesco has confirmed that Clubcard Pay Plus will close in April 2026, forcing customers to change how they pay, how they collect rewards, and how they manage any linked savings. On the surface, this is being framed as a practical or operational decision. To many shoppers, it will feel like a mild inconvenience, something you update once and forget about. In reality, it's more significant than it looks. When a retailer removes a payment option, it's rarely just about tidying up systems. Payment methods shape behavior. They influence how often people shop, how much they spend, and how connected they feel to a brand. By removing Pay Plus, Tesco is narrowing the ways customers interact with its ecosystem and steering them back toward fewer, more tightly controlled options. For shoppers, the immediate impact is disruption. Direct debits may need changing. Automatic roundups disappear. A system that once felt dependable simply stops existing. And the lesson is subtle but important. None of these benefits are permanent. This highlights a larger trend in modern retail. Loyalty features are presented as rewards, but they are conditional. Customers don't own them. They can be changed, restricted, or removed entirely, often with little notice. The convenience you're encouraged to build your habits around can vanish overnight. In the long term, this kind of change resets behavior. It forces customers to adapt, rethink routines, and re-engage with whatever new system replaces the old one. That reset isn't accidental. It gives the retailer another opportunity to influence how, when, and why you spend. Most people won't dwell on this change for long. They'll switch payment methods and carry on. But it's a reminder that the tools designed to make shopping easier are also tools of control. And once you depend on them, you're always one decision away from losing them. And if a payment method can disappear quietly, the next change, involving rewards, vouchers, and partner schemes, could affect even more people without them realizing it. Number 5. Reward. Vouchers are changing, and most shoppers won't notice until it's too late. For many Tesco shoppers, Clubcard rewards feel like a constant. You scan your card, collect points, and later convert them into vouchers for travel, days out, or partner brands. Over time, people build real value into this system. Some save points all year for Christmas. Others rely on specific reward partners they've used for years. That sense of stability is exactly what makes the changes coming in 2026 so easy to miss. Tesco has already confirmed that certain long-standing Clubcard reward partners are being removed or phased out, with more changes expected as contracts expire and schemes are restructured. On top of that, some savings and reward schemes now come with stricter deadlines, expiry dates, and conditions that are easy to overlook if you're not paying close attention. To Tesco, these are updates. To customers, they can mean lost value. When a reward partner disappears, your points don't suddenly vanish, but the ways you plan to use them do. Vouchers you were saving for a specific purpose may no longer stretch as far, or may not be usable at all in the way you expected. And because these changes are often communicated quietly, through emails, small print updates, or website notices, many shoppers only realize after it's too late. There's a psychological impact here too. Loyalty schemes work because they feel predictable. When that predictability starts to erode, customers are left constantly checking rules, dates, and exclusions. The system becomes harder to trust, even as people are more deeply invested in it than ever. These shifts also give Tesco more flexibility. By tightening timelines and adjusting partners, the company reduces long-term liabilities while encouraging faster spending of points. In other words, customers are nudged to use rewards quickly, on Tesco's terms, rather than saving them strategically. And before we go any further, if this is already making you rethink how loyalty really works, take a second to like this video and subscribe. These are exactly the kinds of changes most shoppers never hear about until they're affected by them. Because what's coming next goes beyond rewards altogether. The next change isn't about points or vouchers, it's about how closely you're being watched while you shop, and why 2026 could make Tesco stores feel very different from what you're used to. Number 4. Scottish stores are quietly changing what ends up on the shelves. In 2026, shoppers in Scotland may not notice anything unusual when they walk into a Tesco store. The aisles will look the same, the branding will feel familiar, but behind the scenes, a major shift will already be in motion. Tesco has announced that by spring 2026, all of its Scottish stores will move to sourcing 100% Scotch beef and 100% Scottish salmon. On the surface, this sounds like a clear positive. Local food, national pride, support for Scottish farmers and producers, shorter supply chains, fresher products. For many customers, that's where the story ends. But when a supermarket of Tesco's size commits to sourcing at this scale, the ripple effects go far beyond a simple label change. Supplying every Tesco store in Scotland with only local beef and salmon places enormous pressure on producers. Contracts become tighter. Delivery schedules become stricter, margins are squeezed, farmers and fisheries are expected to meet consistent volume and pricing demands, regardless of seasonal challenges, weather disruption, or rising operating costs. When supply tightens, and it inevitably does, supermarkets don't always raise prices in obvious ways. Instead, changes appear gradually. Certain cuts become harder to find, pack sizes subtly shrink, choice narrows, some options disappear altogether. To the shopper, it can feel like coincidence or temporary disruption, even though it's the result of a deliberate sourcing strategy. There's also a question of flexibility. When supermarkets rely on multiple supply sources, they can absorb shocks more easily. When they commit to one region or certification, that flexibility shrinks. If there's a bad season, a disease outbreak, or a labour shortage, the impact reaches shelves faster. And while the messaging remains positive, the reality for shoppers can be less variety and less price stability. Over time, this kind of sourcing commitment also reshapes the producer landscape. Larger suppliers with the resources to scale and comply with strict requirements gain ground, while smaller producers struggle to keep up. The result can be fewer suppliers overall, even as the product is marketed as more local and more ethical. For customers, this creates a subtle contradiction. You're told the change is about quality and sustainability, and in many ways it is. But it can also mean paying more, choosing from fewer options, and adapting to availability issues that weren't there before. This isn't just about Scotland, it reflects a broader shift in how Tesco manages its supply chains. Fewer variables, stronger narratives, and tighter control from farm to shelf. These decisions don't always announce themselves in store, but their effects shape what customers see and buy every week. And if you think supply control stops at sourcing, the next change goes even further, because it involves how closely Tesco is watching what you do in the store itself. Number 3, shopping in Tesco is becoming more monitored than ever. For most shoppers, a trip to Tesco still feels like one of the most ordinary routines of the week. You walk in, pick up a basket or trolley, browse the aisles, scan your items at self-checkout, and leave. There's an unspoken assumption that this process is casual and largely anonymous, that unless you're doing something wrong, no one is really paying attention. In 2026, that assumption no longer holds. Over the past few years, Tesco has been quietly expanding its use of AI-assisted self-checkout systems, advanced CCTV, and centralized security monitoring. What started as basic loss prevention technology has evolved into something far more sophisticated. These systems don't just watch products, they analyze behavior. They track patterns, movements, pauses, and irregularities, often without customers, fully understanding what's being monitored. Many shoppers have already encountered the most visible sign of this shift. You scan an item, the screen freezes, and suddenly a video replay appears, asking you to confirm that you scanned everything correctly. Even when you know you've done nothing wrong, the experience feels uncomfortable, slightly accusatory, public. It creates a moment of doubt where there didn't need to be one. But that moment is only the surface layer. Behind it sits a growing network of cameras and software feeding into Tesco's 24/7 security operations. These systems can monitor thousands of stores simultaneously, flagging behavior deemed unusual by algorithms rather than humans. How long you spend in certain aisles, how often you correct a scan, whether your movement matches expected shopping patterns. All of this becomes data. The biggest change isn't that theft is being targeted, it's that trust is being replaced. In the past, mistakes at checkout were handled by staff using judgment and context. Now, automated systems make the first call and customers are asked to respond. The burden subtly shifts onto the shopper to prove that they're behaving correctly. For many people, this changes how they shop. They rush, they avoid self-checkouts, they second-guess themselves, they feel watched even when they're doing everything right. And there's a long-term consequence here. Surveillance systems don't stay static. Once installed, they expand. Software improves, criteria tighten. Monitoring becomes more granular because it can be. What starts as loss prevention quietly becomes behavior control. All of this also generates an enormous amount of behavioral data. Every interaction at checkout helps refine how the system responds next time. The more people use it, the more precise and less forgiving it becomes. In 2026, Tesco stores may still look the same on the surface, but the experience underneath will feel different, more automated, more monitored, less human. And once that becomes normal, it's almost impossible to roll back. And if being watched while you shop sounds unsettling, the next change goes even further, because it affects how prices themselves can shift around you without warning. Number 2, prices that can change faster than you can notice. For decades, shoppers relied on one simple rule. The price on the shelf was the price you paid at the till. It created a sense of certainty. You could compare items, do quick maths in your head, and feel confident that what you saw was locked in. That certainty is slowly disappearing. As Tesco continues rolling out digital shelf labels and automated pricing systems, the relationship between shoppers and prices is changing. These systems allow prices to be updated centrally, instantly, and at scale, without staff manually changing labels or customers clearly noticing when something has shifted. On the surface, this is sold as efficiency, fewer errors, faster updates, easier promotions, and in many cases, that's true. But it also introduces a level of flexibility that shoppers have never really had to think about before. When prices can change quickly, the idea of a normal price becomes blurred. Promotions can appear and disappear faster. Prices can be adjusted by time of day, demand, stock levels, or wider pricing strategies. A product that felt like good value last week, or even earlier that day, may quietly become more expensive without drawing attention to itself. For customers, this creates subtle confusion. You might feel like prices are jumping around, but you can't quite prove it. You may second-guess whether something was cheaper last time or wonder if you're misremembering. Over time, that uncertainty benefits the retailer, not the shopper. There's also a transparency issue. Traditional paper labels made price changes visible. Someone had to physically replace them. Digital labels make price movement invisible in the moment it happens. Unless you're actively tracking prices, you're unlikely to notice when small increases creep in, especially on items you buy regularly and trust. Combined with loyalty pricing and targeted offers, this creates layered pricing environments where different customers effectively experience different versions of the same store. What feels like a discount to one shopper may be the baseline for another. Choice still exists, but clarity fades. Tesco won't need to announce major price changes loudly. The systems allow adjustment to happen quietly, continuously, and efficiently, all while shoppers adapt without realizing how much has shifted. And when customers lose a clear sense of price stability, it becomes easier to accept almost anything as just how it is now. Which brings us to the final and biggest change, the one that doesn't just affect how you shop, but why Tesco is changing everything in the first place. Number 1, the quiet rulebook. That's changing everything. This is the change that explains all the others, and it's the one most shoppers will never actually see happening. Tesco isn't just tweaking prices, adjusting store layouts, or updating technology. It's operating under a fundamentally different internal rulebook shaped by long-term sustainability targets, data optimization, automation, cost control, and growing regulatory pressure. None of this arrives as a single dramatic announcement. Instead, it unfolds gradually through dozens of small, seemingly reasonable decisions that quietly reshape how the supermarket works. On paper, these goals sound responsible and even necessary. Tesco talks about reducing carbon emissions, cutting waste, simplifying supply chains, and improving efficiency. The language is reassuring and the intentions are hard to argue with, but what's rarely discussed is how these targets are achieved in practice. Meeting them requires trade-offs, and those trade-offs often affect customers in ways that aren't clearly explained. When suppliers are required to meet stricter environmental or operational standards, their costs increase. When packaging is redesigned to align with sustainability goals, portion sizes often change. When product ranges are simplified to reduce waste or complexity, choice narrows. Items that no longer fit the new framework quietly disappear, even if customers have bought them for years. None of this is announced directly. Shoppers are left to notice the changes on their own. That's because Tesco no longer needs to introduce change loudly. The systems built over recent years allow adjustments to happen silently. Loyalty data reveals how much customers will tolerate before changing habits. Automated pricing fine-tunes margins without drawing attention. Digital shelf labels remove the visibility and friction of price changes. Surveillance and monitoring systems discourage mistakes and resistance. Behavioral nudges guide customers toward preferred choices without ever feeling like rules. Each change on its own feels small and reasonable. Together, they create an environment where customers adapt automatically. You don't vote on these decisions. You don't opt in. You're rarely even made fully aware of them. You simply adjust to what's available, what's promoted, and what feels convenient. The free fruit builds trust. The price cuts create dependence. Loyalty changes reset habits. Monitoring enforces compliance. Digital pricing removes certainty. Every piece supports the same outcome, a supermarket that has more influence over what you buy and how you buy it, while giving you less visibility into how those decisions are made. Tesco won't feel like it's forcing change on anyone. It won't need to. The structure does the work quietly in the background. The store still looks familiar. The routine still feels normal. The branding still reassures you. But the relationship has shifted. Tesco is no longer simply responding to how people shop. It is actively guiding it. And once that kind of system is fully in place, it doesn't reverse easily, because most people won't even realize when the change happened. By now, one thing should be clear: none of these changes are happening in isolation. What's coming to Tesco in 2026 isn't about a single policy, a single technology, or a single price adjustment. It's about a shift in how supermarkets operate and how shoppers fit into that system. On the surface, everything still feels familiar, the same aisles, the same branding, the same weekly routine, but underneath the rules are changing. Prices are becoming more fluid, choices are being curated more tightly, loyalty is becoming conditional, monitoring is becoming normal, and decisions that affect your wallet and your habits are being made further away from you than ever before. The danger isn't that one change will suddenly hurt you. It's that dozens of small changes slowly reshape what feels normal. You adapt without being asked. You accept less choice, less transparency, and more control, because each step feels reasonable on its own. So what can you actually do? First, pay attention. Question changes instead of assuming they're temporary. If something disappears, shrinks, or feels different, it usually isn't an accident. Second, don't rely too heavily on any single loyalty system. Rewards, payment features, and perks can be changed or removed at any time. Treat them as bonuses, not guarantees. Third, stay price aware. Don't assume consistency just because a store feels familiar. Compare, check receipts, and trust your instincts when something feels off. Most importantly, talk about it. These systems only work quietly when people don't compare notes. If this video helped you see your weekly shop differently, leave a comment and share what you've noticed changing where you shop. And if you know friends or family who rely heavily on Tesco, share this with them. Because these changes affect everyone, whether they realize it yet or not. Finally, if you want more breakdowns like this, clear, researched, and honest, subscribe to the channel. The biggest changes are rarely the loudest ones, and we'll keep exposing them as they happen.